Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Duffy Duck here once again, and I'm back for some more of the Maxi Toys videos, and today, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Sonic Unleashed for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3 for some DLC. So, last time we actually did tackle through buddy in forms of avatars between day and night stages, in the forms of Windmill Isle, and even then pretty decent job at best, but even then good run in the forms of daytime stages, the only one exception, mind you, in the forms of the nighttime level, and now's the forms I've accidentally come across into a glitch, while I'm able to actually clipping through the floor, which is kind of embarrassing, I have to say for this much. And today for this episode, folks, is the fact that we're going to be moving on to the next set of DLC. We're going to be traversing through Savannah Citadel in the forms of Mazuri, and let's get started by the forms of, once again, daytime stages. So, let's get started by the forms of Act 1-2. So, as far as I'm aware though, is the fact that this level plays exactly like Act 1, official Act 1 in Mazuri, but except, you know, add some more difficult obstacles here and there, like, you know, you can definitely see how we can able to actually breeze for this. So, like, for instance, spikes everywhere, so there's not much to tell here. Plus, there's some robots from the get-go now, instead of, like, in the forms of that when you're about to be entering the Mazuri itself, so hopefully we get ourselves our boost going. So, thankfully, though, we've got ourselves some boost there, so yeah, today was actually forms of, well, for this video anyway, today was actually forms of, the 12th of June, 2018, so you know what that means for this point today, folks, is today is the forms of Nintendo E3 2018. And to be more specifically, Nintendo Direct, you gotta be kidding me. Oh well. First failure for this particular daytime level, though, but that's how it happens. But anyways, though, yeah, because of that though, I was really looking forward to see how I'm going to be discussing for you guys about the forms of how the fact that what games that have been announced and more infos about certain games is about to be announced for Nintendo stuff. But even then though, that we'll find out, I will definitely tell you guys for that until we get to the next piece of DLC, which is going to be at Alaska. So, originally I was trying to go through Spagonia after this, but I've heard there are some plenty of questionable, difficult spikes is here involved in the forms of, you know, Spagonia's DLC. Mainly for Act 2-2, because, you know, you can definitely tell why, I failed that, so that's a bit puny. Especially noticeable how the fact that the, you know, the quick time events can go really ridiculously fast. I'm gonna tell you that now. Anyways, though, aside from the, today was actually, you know, the Nintendo E3 Nintendo Direct, 2018 edition of Nintendo Direct. In addition to that, though, I was able to actually discuss some for you guys about the forms of, well, they actually did announce something, but in forms of, well, yesterday was, you know, the Sony, Microsoft, and Square Enix, you know, press conferencing, which even then, though, I've heard that they've actually made a new stuff is announced, but in forms of Kingdom Hearts 3, which again, I'll discuss more on that later. And also Last of Us Part 2 from the Sony's department, and all kinds of other games where I was like, okay then. And also I've heard that Master able to actually, well, I've definitely noticed that from the likes of Nintendo though anyway, I'm not sure about that to be exactly though, I have to be honest with you guys, because, well, I'll explain more details onto that as soon as we're able to get to Alaska DLC, so don't worry, I'll discuss more into those kinds of stuff, so... Oh! Okay, good. Thank goodness I've managed to pass that, so... And if I did not manage to... Oh! Goodness gracious, yeah, these little cannons right there, they go a lot faster now, so... Plus there are some tons of spikes all over the wall. So even then though, that if you're having a hard time trying to able to deal with... Oh, goodness gracious me. And... Okay, just... Jump. Oh, hold that! Okay, that was my fault there. I think it's probably because of my homing attack has gone a little bit more jinxed up and what have you, but... Even though it doesn't feel like, it's nothing too broken or anything, it's just sort of feels a bit weird at first. But anyways, let's try this again. But hopefully this won't be as too much frustration, I feel like. Oh, what the? see it did it again. Whenever I was trying to hold my attack into things, and then all of a sudden I just went into the lowest section instead of like, you know, some guardrails departments there, or even just a continuation path. So, I've done it again. Jeez, I'm such an idiot. Although granted though, it's been a long while since I actually managed to come back to this game, quite frankly, for this point, folks, because, well, obviously it's able to actually finish up with the, well, you guys should already know about the fact that we've already finally finished up with Mario Party Advance for the Game Boy Advance, so that we can get that game finished and over with. So, anyways though, and also if I've noticed something is the fact that they actually, oh, Christ, oh phew, that was close. And there we go, folks, that concludes Act 1-2, so, yeah, let's see how I did. Okay, B rank, so it's good. Not the perfect run through by any means, because there are some times though I keep on running into those spikes, and plus I've already, died in the very beginning of the entirety of the level though, so, yeah, there goes that. So, now with that out of the way, and now let's move on to... I wonder what the next stage we're going to be running to. I definitely noticed right from the start, though, is that... Actually, before I get to this, however, though, is the fact that I want to point things out right away, though, is the fact that while the majority of these DLC stages always brings you at tons of daytime levels, but not as much for nighttime stages, I don't think. Because even then, it only has, like, 2 acts per continent for each of the DLC packs, so... And plus, the reason why they just set it into 2 stages instead of like too many stages, unlike the Nintendo Wii and the PlayStation 2 counterparts, because most of the levels in the HD version of this game really starts to get really ridiculously long. So, especially noticeable with the forms of, let's just say, Empire City or Shamar or anything like that. So anyways though. Alright, so here we go, folks. This is the forms of Act 3-2, and it appears to be something a little bit similar to Act 3, the regular Act 3 portion of the main game, except the noticeable differences this time around, though, is the fact that we have ourselves an objective to deal with right there. It's the fact that, as you can see on this little top left corner of the screen, alongside this life counter, this means we have to collect specifically 300 rings before you enter the goal ring. So if you don't collect that enough rings, then you have to restart the entire level again. So, yeah, actually, kind of admit it though, right away though, is that I've managed to done this on the first try. Is it just me? Or perhaps it's mainly because of, well, granted though, I haven't really touched upon this game ever since about 2 months ago, naturally, after the events of, like, you know, beat the likes out of Dark Gaia and even Egg Dragoon, but in forms of the Werehog form. But apart from that though, I've managed to done this no problem. So, anyways though, now let's move on to the next stage, and that's the forms of Act 4, and the ability we definitely need to use is definitely the wall jump, which again, in order to actually requires a wall jump ability, is to be able to actually obtain that from, you know, Rooftop Run's secondary hub. So, not too complicated for the most part though, so... And of course, there's another level you have to deal with a time limit, just like in the forms of Act 3-2, because yes, there is also a time limit on the forms of Act 3-2, so... Okay, so in this level right there... Oh, phew, I almost get screwed over right there, but anyway, in this level is going to be a whole lot of wall climbing segments, which even then though, or in this case wall jumping by any means, because even then though, all we have to do is basically we need to make our way all the way up to the top of the level. Okay, that's fine, because I can just simply activate the switch as soon as I'm about to be laying down right there, and then that way we can deactivate the flamethrower. So, this can be very tricky if you don't know what you're doing, but so far I'm actually doing pretty well so far. There are a few times though that you might attemptedly get slipped over all over the place, so I will admit that right away. But apart from that though, it looks like I'm doing pretty good. So far though anyway though. At least it wasn't until when we get to the later stages where it can get a little bit more frustrating, but not as frustrating as the forms of Sonic 06 DLC, I don't feel like. So, there we go then. Another level that is usually I've managed to accomplish this on my first attempt, so let's see how I did right there. A rank, not bad. Could go for the S rank though, because even then I've managed to able to done this with no sweat. So anyways though, yeah, that pretty much does it from Act 4. And I believe we're now moving on to Act 5, and things can get pretty interesting though, because even now, this is what the difficulty for daytime stages, DLC stages, can get ridiculously ramped up, even for difficulties and all that stuff. But even then, we'll see what happens there, and hopefully I might as well try my best to do this level with no problems whatsoever though, so let's get to it. So this loading times has been done and over with. Okay, this apparently is my jump cut right there, because this is actually my second attempt on this level, because, well, again, I probably established that before, that the failure compilations once again is going to happening right there. Well, it wasn't until whenever I decided to finish up with the forms of Anabad's Adventure Pack DLC, so that makes the case here, so. And it looks like we're going to be, yeah, anyway, for Act 5, basically we're going to be exploring for the exact same area, or this section rather, is that we actually on this little treetops, the one section that we've already fight through the egg beetle ever since during the likes of the main story game. But, this time around though, there's going to be a lot of bombs and a lot of robots all over the place. There are some segments that have the fact that after we actually come across into those kinds of stuff like this, then we would able to actually come across into a 2D section every once in a while. So, that should be very interesting to say the least. So, anyways though. So, another thing I should probably explain about this, amongst other, there's not much else to tell, but in forms of Nintendo E3 2018, as far as I want to establish that until tomorrow anyway, when we get to the Halaska DLC, that we got ourselves the brief information on the forms of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee editions about the fact that they're gonna serve a software demo in the forms of the actual gameplay footages, all that stuff. So even then, very interesting to the eye. So even then, that it should be worth noting for anyway. And plus, I've noticed in the forms of the Amazon website page, on the forms of amazon.co.uk. Basically, they've now actually listed the forms of both Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu / Eevee editions, in addition to the Pokeball Plus. So even then, that should be worth a while. So yeah, I'm actually really, really looking forward to able to actually get myself my second chance of Pokemon mainstream Pokemon series again. Although I will admit though right away though is the fact that I just need to concentrate here. I think this is a section I've accidentally died right there because I was actually getting myself a really lucky quick time event reaction timing, but then all of a sudden for some reason I failed that on purpose, which even then though that it's totally my fault for that little knowledge right there. But apart from that though, I could still be able to be fully capable of quick time events though, but sometimes if it goes like ridiculously fast, that can get pretty obnoxious or even just sometimes difficult if you're not paying too much attention to it, so. Oh wow, that was really close. And I believe this might be the final part of this level because I'm assuming we got to deal with this particular same sequence again because, you know, these 3 yellow brigade robots is about to be returning right there. So, yeah, I'm actually very curious able to actually just go ahead and play some Pokemon again, but this time on Nintendo Switch to get ourselves a much more definitive experience from that particular game, from my experience though anyway, because, well, still I no longer have Pokemon Ultra Moon now, because even though I know that, the reason being for that is because, you know, I'm just not a peculiar Pokemon fanatic though still. But even then, I might be very curious what the forms of Let's Go Pikachu edition is going to be on. Whoa, yeah! Nice little S rank. How about that then, huh? Top notch for me. Alright, so that concludes the daytime levels in the DLC stages in Mazuri now. So, now let's go ahead and move on to, well, just only 2 acts in the forms of, you know, the nighttime levels in the DLC for Mazuri. So, I wonder how long those were going to be like. Well, we'll never know until we're able to actually jump in. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and jump in now. So, and I'm really looking forward until when I manage to decide to able to actually go ahead and try out my hands on the forms of the Pokeball Plus when that accessory comes out for the Nintendo Switch. So anyways though, so we got ourselves Act 3 and Act 4. So, let's go with Act 3 first. If I'm assuming correctly, well, you're still able to actually try to deal with enemies and such, but I think the majority of those 2 levels is going to be most likely platform heavy, because, well, you can definitely see why as soon as we're able to jump in. So, and what's beyond here? Well, first of all, we've got ourselves an extra life right there. So naturally, we've got ourselves 61 1-ups. So, again, what's really great about the DLC about this is the fact that, well, the main entire game, you can potentially keep your lives at this far as that point in time. Sorry for lack of dialogue for this point, folks, because, well, I really can't tell you what the forms of these news and updates until when we get to tomorrow, whenever I get to, you know, Alaska Adventure Pack stuff. So don't worry, folks, I'll get to that point. So, still might be interesting though, as soon as these new stuff is about to be happening though. So anyway though, apart from that, well, when it comes to the North American version of the forms of The Incredibles 2, well, for North America, that, well, they've only got ourselves 3 more days left until the actual film is about to be coming out, whilst in the UK version, we have to wait until about a month later. So, I don't mind about it too much when it comes to waiting impatiently with all that stuff, because after all, I can able to actually watch the first Incredibles film anytime, anywhere, if I'm also able to follow for the entire timeline. So, yeah, that could be very cool for my knowledge. So, you can also perform a shortcut here and there too, like the forms of this little particular, of course, much like the ones in the forms of, I would say, just like in the forms of Act 1-2 from Apatos, or even especially noticeable with the forms of Windmill Isle, you got to rely on the time limit or something like that when it comes to doing with harder platforming sections like this. But even then, that's as far as I'm majorly consumption with this thing though, so... it appears to be we're almost nearly towards the end of this level though, because I'm not even kidding. How the fact that most of those levels for the nighttime stages for some DLC stages can go really quick if depends on your skill. So that could be something worth mentioning. Alright, the end. That's not worth it. Oh, phew, I was really close. Because I was gonna get screwed over by the forms of that. Oh my lord. It's so impossible to able to actually grab onto things sometimes, but at least I made it though anyway. And once again we have to deal with this little particular monster right there, so you can then know that it always happens every single time when we're trying to be able to actually get into the nighttime levels, or even especially noticeable with the forms of the later DLC stages, I feel like. So, oh, and by the way, for those of you trying to able to actually deal with this monster, by the way, if you manage to get yourselves a massive knockback, for instance, since after all, for this particular section right there, there's no guardrails anymore, so even then though, that you have to be very careful right there, because if you manage to get knocked back, if you manage to able to actually, you know, accidentally fall down to the bottomless pit, then you have to redo the entire platforming section again. Well, since I've actually managed to activate the checkpoints, so at least it did manage to continue me when I left off, so I don't have to worry about this too much. So, there we go then. Alright, so before we're able to actually activate the switch or pull this lever up, then we could potentially try to get ourselves some more chaos drives, so even then we can eventually trying to able to actually level up not only just for Sonic the Werehog, but also Sonic the Hedgehog as well. So things should be a little bit more simple and clean as far as I'm most likely concerned with. So, alright, so... Oh, I realized we've only got one more enemy right there to face off with. Yep, I know it. And it was actually on this really tight area, I feel like. So, oh yeah, this is why every now and then though... Oh, jeez, that was really close. Especially noticeable how the fact that, okay, this little barrier decides to protect me in here, so unleash time, prepare to be demolished. At least as far as I'm basically concerned with this though, so anyway though, that's fine, because even then though, you know, when you become unleashed, then you're pretty much invincible for this majority of these few moments notice, but if you not becoming unleashed mode, then you're probably gonna get hit a lot, so I gotta say that much until now. But anyways though, alright, let's go ahead and just... Oh, it's almost down here. I'm assuming that most of these mini boss fights, I will admit though right away though, they can get pretty strong, especially with the defenses actually maxed out, which unlike in earlier stages in the forms of this particular version of the game, like the forms of Windmill Isle, and especially noticeable with the past few stages from the main story or the main game, basically the enemies themselves can get pretty weak, as far as I'm aware, whenever we're trying to keep on upgrading Sonic the Werehog. So, why is it looks awfully shiny right there? I will admit though right away though of how that happening right there. I think this is most likely because of how the fact that, well, well, it's nothing like how it does in the forms of Sonic Adventure ports for the forms of the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3 version, because even I know those two versions, then it just gets awfully plastic looking. But anyways though, as you can see folks, we've actually managed to get ourselves a fully upgraded Bring Energy before you're able to actually just play for the daytime stage. So, well, at least until we wait until when we get to Alaska, so even I know that, yeah. Pretty excited, naturally, though. So anyways, now let's move on to Act 4 now. So even I know that, okay, assuming this might be, sorry, another one of those platforming type stages. So, although there are still some enemies to be able to actually beat the likes out of them, so let's see how this goes, though, hey? We'll see how this goes. And by the way, I really do like the actual environment of the forms of this particular level right there, because, well, we actually ended up in this particular, treetops right there, which I will admit though, this particular part always reminds me of the forms of, some of these sequences in the forms of Star Wars The Return of the Jedi, which appears to be the 6th installment of, or in this case, the 6th episode of the forms of the Star Wars, you know, the actual, film trilogy, you know, the original trilogies as far as I'm aware. I know it's been a long while since I actually watched some of the Star Wars stuff, so anyways though, a few things I want to explain also is the fact that I've recently managed to saw a whole bunch of new trailers for the actual movies themselves, which we have, well, first of all, we've got ourselves How to Train Your Dragon 3, or in this case, for this matter, for as a final name of that particular film, is now going to call it How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World, which appears to be more accurately the third entry of the How to Train Your Dragon series. And even then, though, as far as I'm aware for that, is I'm actually really looking forward to see how the fact that I might actually go ahead and just see the Hidden World, because even though I haven't really, although I have watched the first film, but I haven't seen a second film just yet, though. But even then, though, that I've heard that they are really, really great. Even they are the most masterpiece when it comes to the DreamWorks movies, which I will admit though right away, that's really impressive. So, anyways, though, yeah, I can't wait to see how the actual film turns out to be, but somehow it's the fact that I have to wait until when it gets to next year though, so just like the ones in the Lego Movie 2, the second part, and especially noticeable with the forms of the most hyped movies of all time in the forms of 2019 at the moment, which we have Toy Story 4, so man, I'm really looking forward to able to actually just to be seeing Toy Story 4 when that comes out next year though, so, because yeah, what makes it a little bit iffy about that, but in forms of, let's just take it back from the forms of, let's just say back in during the likes of 2015 or 2014, that originally Toy Story 3 was going to, oh no, Toy Story 4, sorry, how the fact that, that film was going to be originally going to came out in 2017, and even especially noticeable with, yeah, just 2017 in general, but unfortunately it's got pushed back due to, you know, Cars 3 will get its release until 2017, obviously. Although, Coco, I give Coco some credit for. They did something a little bit more unique to it. Although it's kind of like the exact same style as the Book of Life on the forms of that specific film. When I did manage to see that in the forms of back in 2016, which is about 2 years later than that. Well, better late than never, I suppose. I just feel like for that such. But anyways, though, yeah, you see that environment right there? It looks very, very impressive for the time, because it's especially noticeable if you actually play this on the 360 or the PlayStation 3, is that you can see the actual trees and the actual foreground, and this is very impressive to look at. Well, at least as far as the actual contrast in the forms of the actual environments themselves, so it's very impressive actually. One thing about this level though is the fact that the platforming sections every now and then starts to get pretty difficult. Even the forms of these little hammers is actually introduced ever since, well, pretty much for the sake of like, we saw these hammers ever since during the likes of one of the daytime stages in the forms of the Windmill Isle. So even though that's the only prime example of how the fact that I'm considering that if you manage to able to actually accidentally get touched by a hammer, then you would able to actually get shoved over. So even then, you have to stay sharp on that one. So, and of course, we couldn't even forgive body forms of this particular Titan enemy like that. So, I'm hoping we can able to become stronger until when we get into the later DLC stages from now on, though, because well, you can definitely tell why until we get to the later adventure packs for the next couple of videos ahead, so... But at least we can able to actually cope with this kinds of stuff though, so far we haven't come across into the most disturbing glitch that we've ever encountered so far though, at least I'm hoping not it will be, because, jeez, that can really, I didn't expect that coming though, but even then, no, that's just how I figured it is, so anyway. Let's just let the unleash gauge run out until we're able to actually move on to the next wave of enemies, but before we do that, let's go ahead and pull this switch over, and able to actually move on to some more of these little platforming segments. So, yeah, I will admit though right away though, is that, well, some of these nighttime levels usually sometimes contains like 2 acts in a specific continent. However, most of the time though, that it only has like 1 act, just because of how the fact that the levels themselves for the nighttime stages can get a tad bit more longer than you expect it will be, which I can assume that the reason why they do this is because, well, as far as you're aware, I'm assuming so, I suppose. So anyway. Anyways, we got these more sets of Eggman's robots to deal with right there, including these little electrical shields, and in addition to those little chainsaws to be able to actually deal with for this point right there. But even then, since we actually did manage to improve upon strength and etc., then we'll become a lot more powerful than previously. So even then, that this is seriously, I really recommend you keep on leveling up the Werehog stages before you start to started to do with the DLC stages, because if you're pretty much low with that specific level amount, then you're pretty much gonna get owned a lot. Even especially noticeable with your low health, and even with your low unleash gauge, and even your lower amount of shield, and even lack of strength. And also pretty much limited combats or combos even for this little department there. So actually I might as well able to get those little items really quickly, so I've become even much more devastating whatever it will be, and I've become unleash mode just for the sake of things. So there you go then. Huzzah! Okay, so we got one more enemy left, and we should be able to deal with this. Even though I've accidentally forgot to pick up the defense upgrades, even though I would expect it to be able to actually grab that from earlier ago, but I forgot, so oh well. But on the plus side though, is the fact that we've managed to get our goal ring appeared, and we could potentially finish the level as normal, so booyah! So far, that when it comes to the Werehog stages, I've pretty much done it very well there. Well, I'll take a B rank, so that's okay though. But, so far I haven't died at many points in during the likes of the nighttime stages, I don't think. Well, there are some plenty of times I got some death situations in the daytime stages, most notably in Act 5 and Act 1-2. But that's fine, because even then, that's what normally becomes of how the fact that some of these death situations usually happens in common, if any sense though anyway. So, with that being said folks, we gotta end things off at this point right there. So join me next time on Let's Play Sonic Unleashed for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3 when it comes to DLC stages. Is the fact that we're going to go ahead and move on to the next continent, which should be, well, I said this before, Alaska next. So I might as well do Spigonia after Alaska, so yeah, see you guys next time. Later fellas.